In 1967, a pregnant woman is bitten by a vampire, causing her to go into premature labor. The doctors are able to save the baby, but unfortunately the woman passes away. 30 years later, a woman lures a man to an underground rave club filled with partying people. Dude is getting into the vibe, thinking that he is about to have a great time. Suddenly, the club's sprinklers go off, but instead of water, blood begins to pour down over the people who turn out to be vampires. The man is thrown around violently and is about to be attacked, when the infamous vampire hunter named Blade turns up. The vampires stay back in fear, and when they try to attack, Blade begins to blast some away with special bullets, causing them to go up in dust. When he loses his gun, Blade is forced into close combat, but using his blades and his immense strength, he easily demolishes the vampires. Blade pulls another submachine gun and wipes out the attackers and even the DJ. A few vampires surround him, but Blade pulls his sword and with some lightning-fast moves, he slices through the men with ease. The last man tries to attack, but Blade grabs his shotgun and uses his stake attachment to pin the man to the wall. The vampire is mumbling in an unknown language, so Blade sets him on fire and escapes before the cops turn up. The cops put the burning vampire out, and thinking he is just a man, they take him to the hospital's morgue. Blood samples from the charred body are sent to Dr. Karen Jensen, who notes that the corpse's blood cells are strange. She goes down to the morgue with the mortician Dr. Webb, Karen's ex, and begins to investigate the corpse. The two begin to squabble about their past, when the corpse suddenly attacks Webb, biting into his neck and leaving him for dead. The creature then lounges at Karen, sinking its fangs into her neck. Blade turns up and begins to battle the monster, but cops show up and shoot at Blade, allowing the vampire to escape. Blade is leaving, but cannot bring himself to leave Karen behind, who pleads through her eyes for his help. Blade escapes as more cops turn up, so he throws Karen from the window before jumping across to the roof. He grabs Karen and escapes the cops opening fire at him. He drives her back to his hideout on the edge of the city and brings Karen to his mentor and assistant Abraham Whistler, who thinks that Blade should have just killed her and threatens to do so if she starts to turn. Whistler injects Karen with an anti-vampire serum, which begins to fight the takeover, causing her to squirm in pain. Meanwhile, we meet the vampire Illuminati, calling themselves the Council of Purebloods. Their leader Dragonetti scowls over the reports about Blade. He decides to send in his underling Frost, the leader of a small faction of vampires. Due to Frost being a turned vampire, they look down on him and scold him for even having a club in the first place. Frost thinks that vampires should come out of the shadows and rule the humans, and warns that the elders and their old customs will find them go extinct very soon. Blade goes to see a friend who runs a potions shop and who creates the serum to stop Blade from feeding on humans. He gets himself a stronger potion due to building up his resistance. Eventually, Karen wakes up fully healed and begins to search around, when she hears Whistler and Blade talking. She sees Whistler strap Blade into a chair, noting that the dosage is too high, but Blade urges him to go on. Whistler injects him, causing Blade to convulse in pain. They spot Karen, who takes off running out of fear, but Whistler corners her and stops her from escaping. Karen thinks she is a prisoner, but Whistler explains that they had to stop her change before they let her go. She has a hard time believing their story about hunting vampires, and Whistler adds that they use UV rays and silver to battle them. As Blade sets out on another hunt, he urges Karen to leave the city as she has now been marked by the vampires and will be hunted if she sticks around. Whistler gives her vampire mace to help protect herself and tells her to buy a gun, and if she feels any symptoms like extreme thirst or sensitivity to sunlight, she should end herself. Blade drops Karen back into the city, warning her again before leaving her there. She returns to her apartment and enters the elevator, but two suspicious people get in, staring at her. She exits and they begin to follow her, so she pulls out her mace, but the couple disappear. She gets inside and immediately begins to pack when a young cop enters the apartment. He introduces himself as Krieger, on a routine check, but before he can pull his gun she sprays him with a mace. Turns out Krieger is not a vampire, but Blade shows up and knocks him around. Blade explains that he is a familiar, hoping to become a vampire one day. Blade sees his tattoo and realizes he is working for Frost. They take him back to his car to see a case filled with blood and demands to know where he was headed. He refuses to talk, so Blade begins to kick his ass, but Karen stops him, causing Krieger to escape. Blade scolds her for not having the guts, but Karen decides to stick around with Blade as he is her only option to survive. They stick around till nightfall and see Krieger return to pick up his car and follow him. Krieger calls ahead and alerts his people, telling them to clear out the clinic as Blade is on his tail. Blade and Karen arrive outside of a vampire club and see Krieger run inside with the case. Blade gears up and hands Karen a gun with silver-tipped bullets. Blade blasts his way into the club, which is filled with Yakuza vampires. He spots Krieger and is forced to knock down a few men before getting to him. Blade finds the entrance hidden behind fridge doors and tells Krieger to warn Frost that he is coming for him. He and Karen enter the underground chamber filled with a massive computer. Krieger arrives at Frost's mansion, telling him that it wasn't his fault for bringing Blade, but Frost pounces on him and kills him. Frost orders the vampire from the morgue, Quinn, to capture Blade alive, a task which he thinks is impossible. Karen and Blade encounter Pearl, a morbidly obese vampire. Blade has Pearl tortured with UV light until he reveals that Frost plans to use the blood of the vampire elders to awaken La Magra, the blood god, which he will use to wage war against the humans. Blade breaks into another room to see the ancient pages of the vampire Bible hanging around, but hears someone running around inside. Blade follows the person who turns out to be an apparent scared girl. Suddenly Quinn and his men enter and the girl unleashes a flurry of kicks, knocking Blade back. Blade recovers and knocks her down with one punch before taking on the other men. These men are skilled fighters and manage to beat Blade back before they trap him. Quinn uses the chance to beat Blade down and uses his stake to stab him in the shoulder. Before he can attack again, Whistler bursts through the wall and opens fire on the vampires. Blade grabs Karen and escapes with Whistler, who drops a bomb behind. The bomb explodes, killing the vampires but knocking Whistler into the path of a train. Blade and Karen run across to the other side of the tracks, but Quinn chases after him and the two begin to battle, where Blade manages to slice off his arm, causing him to flee. Before they can be ambushed, Blade grabs hold of the passing train and makes a getaway. Karen helps him with his dislocated arm before he injects himself with the serum again. Karen thinks he is one of them, but Blade tells her that he is something else. Back at the hideout, Whistler tells Karen that he found Blade when he was just 13 and notes that unlike other vampires, he was immune to their weaknesses and had immense strength, with the only drawback being his thirst for blood. The serum helped for a while, but now he is becoming immune to it. Whistler explains that he also had a family, but they were attacked by vampires and only he was left. Karen goes to speak with Blade, who is sitting alone in a room, telling him that she understands. He tells her that he has been tracking down his mother's killer and cannot allow this to stop him now. Frost and his men have kidnapped Dragonetti and brings him to a cliff at sunrise. Frost pulls out his vampire fangs and leaves him there as the sun rises and burns him alive. Frost returns to the council, showing them Dragonetti's fangs and declaring that he is now the leader. Blade shows Whistler a fragment of the vampire Bible as well as the hard drive from Pearl and wants him to look into it. Karen then reveals to them that a compound EDTA, when introduced to vampire blood, causes a violent explosion and wants to use it as a weapon. Karen is checking on her bites when Whistler reveals to her that due to the rate of infection she has about a day before she turns. Blade is heading to get more serum when he spots Frost across the street holding a little girl as a shield. Frost tries to convince Blade to give in to the vampire side and join them as they plan to take over the humans. Blade refuses and Frost threatens him. Blade opens fire on Frost, who dodges and throws the girl into the street before escaping. Blade is forced to save the girl instead of chasing after him. Back at the hideout, Karen is able to create an anti-vampire vaccine in hopes of curing herself, but doubts that it could work on Blade since he was born a vampire. They suddenly hear laughing and spot vampires moving about. Whistler and Karen grab their guns and stand ready. The vampires attack, but Whistler is able to take down a few before he is shot in the leg by Frost. While they hold Karen, Frost brutally beats Whistler before setting his guys on him. After a while, Blade returns to the hideout to see the dead vampires and Whistler bloodied and dying. He tells Blade that they took Karen and that Frost needs Blade's blood as a final ingredient to resurrect the blood god. He warns Blade not to go after Frost in fear that he may be captured. Whistler demands that Blade end him before he turns, but Blade refuses and hands him the gun, as he cannot bear to take his mentor's life, and walks away as Whistler ends himself. He plays a tape left behind by Frost, giving him his location and showing that they have Karen. Despite Whistler's warning, Blade begins to prepare to go to war. At Frost's hideout, his guards rush to him, alerting him of an intruder. As the armed men come to check, Blade bursts into the building and opens fire on them, taking down many vampires and using his shotgun to finish them off. Two skilled fighters corner him, but Blade is too fast and strong and they stand no chance, and he injects them with Karen's serum, causing them to explode. Blade enters a fully white room and comes face to face with his mother. She explains that she came back the same night as a vampire and Frost took her in. Suddenly Frost and his men come in, ambushing Blade and knocking him down with tasers. Blade wakes up in the back of a truck with Karen and are driven to the chambers where Frost plans to resurrect the blood god. He has gathered the other elders from the council and announces his plan. He takes Blade's serums, thinking they are to suppress his bloodlust, and throws them a distance off. Frost then takes Karen to another location and throws her into a pit to be eaten. Karen recovers, then comes face to face with Webb, her ex, who has been turned into some sort of vampire zombie. He attacks her and Karen tries holding him off as best as possible. Meanwhile, Blade is taken to a chamber and strapped to a wall with his mother there. She tells him that the vampires are her people and she wants him to join them. Blade is then encased in stone, which begins to drain the blood from his body. Karen has escaped the hole and makes it to the chamber where Blade is being held. She manages to free him from the stone casing and he falls over weakened. Blade tells her that he needs the serum and with no other choice, Karen tells him to bite her as the serum is in her blood. Meanwhile, Blade's blood begins to trickle down through the stone and passes through runes. One drop falls onto Frost and the ritual begins. Blade almost drains Karen dry but manages to regain his strength. His mother enters the room and begins to attack him viciously, but Blade manages to stab her, killing her. The souls of the elders are ripped from their bodies and they all begin to enter Frost, empowering him. Blade makes his way to where Frost is, and kills Quinn in one move. The other vampires attack, but Blade is even stronger and faster and he easily evades their strikes and take them all out. Karen has gotten her hands on a shotgun and is blasting at one vampire who evades and attacks her, but Karen grabs her mace and kills the vampire easily. Blade manages to wipe out all the men then finally face Frost. The two are now almost evenly matched as they clash blades. Blade slices Frost, but his powers now allow him to regenerate instantly, leaving Blade with no way to kill him and he gets knocked down. Blade spots the serum and manages to grab them. As Frost attacks, Blade throws all the serums into his body, causing him to swell and explode. Blade and Karen make it out of the building by sunrise. She offers to cure him, but Blade tells her that he has a job to do and cannot give up his powers as yet.